Okay, so they introduced me as the CEO, but what my real job really is, I lead the AI and ML professional services team at Pluto7, and we are a Google partner. I think, Manju, if I'm not being redundant, I think you told something about our company, right? So we basically are a Google partner, and we provide actually AI and ML solutions to the enterprise customers in retail, high tech, and manufacturing. So just to set the expectation, something like machine learning class, okay, even the tip of the iceberg will take 4 days. So I have to try to compress something between myself and Dhruva into the next few sets of minutes or hours that we have with you. To set the expectation, I'm going to just go very basic. So if there are many data scientists in the room, and if you are expecting me to go into a lot of details, then it is not going to happen. So if you want, I encourage you to leave, right? Because I understand everybody's time is valuable. What we are going to do between myself and Dhruva, though, is based on our experiences, we're going to lead you slowly into what are the key tools to use to wrangle data. You heard a lot about wrangling data, right, today. Right? And you guys are going, what the hell is wrangling data, right? Between all the speakers, and by the way, they did a great job. Consistently you heard that it's all about data. And as a result of us doing actual projects, we find that in real life, in all our projects, it's all about the data, okay? So the idea is to make sure that we give you a flavor of how to go about doing the data wrangling analysis. And the way we are going to do it is anybody can do it, okay? You don't need to be a programmer. You'll see why. Even a business person can do this, what we are going to show today. So that's why I say this is to get you guys started. This is the tip of the iceberg. Hopefully this will allow you to get started with AI and ML. And then if there are questions that are related to what was asked in the morning, I'm happy to take it, right? And I can give some more inferences from real life situations. What I'm going to show you is first, and by the way, full disclosure, we work exclusively with Google Cloud Platform, but what we are going to show you are concepts that are going to be generic, so you can apply them anywhere. And if you don't know, TensorFlow is open source anyway. But I'm not going to go into having you do models using TensorFlow in this discussion, right? I'm going to actually, if you want, that's a separate session. Cannot be done today. If you are interested, we can point out, I think some of the speakers gave you very good insight, pointing out to Andrew Ng's course. That's a great start. And in fact, that's one of the courses we recommend our people to take as well. However, what I'm going to walk you through step by step is how do you go about data analysis? And then between me and Dhruva, we're going to walk you how do you take basic machine learning models, combine them to solve a real life problem, okay, to give you a flavor. And you can do that, what between me and he will show you guys. You can follow over here as much as you can. If you can't, that's fine. We are going to give you material that we have handed off. Do that as homework or over the weekend, whenever you have time, okay? So we will wait for you to catch up, but if we cannot wait, this is a big room, and I'm surprised there are still a lot of people, so good for you. You're really in this for the long run, I can see that. Okay, with that, and one more point. I might be risking antagonizing the PhDs in the room, so apologies, okay? This is more in terms of making sure that all of you understand that it's not about, you don't have to be a PhD to do machine learning and AI, okay? And I'll give you an example of why I say that. I was just talking to one person that I was trying to hire. This person is actually an intern, and she worked at a company. They hired her, and guess what she was hired to do? She was hired to develop an handwriting recognition model, okay? And do you know whom she replaced? She replaced a PhD. Okay? This person came from USC. She has done her master's. She replaced a PhD because the company had that PhD going at this model for more than a year without getting anywhere. And then she comes in, she just does that in 6 weeks. She has got a working model. Point is, PhDs are good, don't get me wrong. I just want to, this is more for making sure that all of you are comfortable getting into AI and don't want anybody to start wondering, oh, I have to be a mathematician. Oh, I really need to know how to code. No, just try to get into this. Try step by step, and that is the intent that we are going to go with, okay? I just wanted to get you excited. So with that, let's get into straight down to I'll just introduce just 1 or 2 slides, and with that, we'll get down to the basics, okay? In any machine learning model, this is the generic architecture you will see, whether it is Google Cloud Platform, IBM, Azure, doesn't matter, or on-premise. This is the basic architecture you're going to use, okay? You have to capture the data. Machine learning is all about data. And by the way, full disclosure, some of these are specific to Google Cloud Platform, but conceptually, you'll have the equivalent of these even in AWS. And I'll point out some of them that I know, and you can help me too.
Sure.
Right? So the ones on the left side is all about capturing the data, right? Then you are processing the data. And things that I will show you today in the processing of data is data prep. And you'll find that it's a very easy to use visual tool that you can use to prep the data. Then we store the data. And in Google Cloud Platform, we have something called as Bigquery. And I'll show you the power of Bigquery. It is both. It's a data warehouse on the cloud. Not only do you use it to store the data, you actually use it to do analysis, and it's a very powerful capability. It's not closed, but the equivalent of this in AWS is something like a Redshift. Okay? Right. Then you have the storage on the cloud, which is cloud storage, and this can store all kinds of information. And then you obviously have the most important piece, which is the ML engine, which is then used to run the ML models. You need all of these plus more, but today what we are going to show you is walk you through Bigquery, cloud storage, just a quick, I think you already saw my colleague Manju, he almost showed you this, but I'll just show you one more time. And then we are going to go through, in that order, Bigquery, to show you the power of Bigquery. It's a very important mechanism to store data as well as process data. Data prep, which will prepare the data. You heard a lot about data prep. You heard a lot about data preparation, which is then necessary to feed into the machine learning models that a lot of you actually heard from today morning and also in the afternoon from some of the speakers.
So Salil, to add to your point,
go ahead.
So if machine learning is a rocket, data is its fuel. So, more finer the data, better the prediction your ML model will make. So 70 to 80% of the time is spent on data preparation.
Yeah, good point. So I think when you might have seen this before, this is what happens when you log into Google Cloud. This is the basic console, okay? In this console, you have access to everything that you need. Every possible, we call it the Lego blocks, right? Every possible thing you would need in an enterprise, believe it or not, is actually in this platform. Google has been using AI. By the way, I'm not selling Google. I'm not selling my company. The intent is just to use and show you what is possible. I personally, before we started on Google, we used AWS. As far as AI and ML is concerned, we found out that Google was much better than AWS. That's why we have selected Google, right? Somebody else may differ from that. So just want to say, the idea is to make you guys aware of what you can do around AI and ML. The fact that we are on Google Cloud Platform is just because we are very close to it, okay? So the first thing that I talked about is storage. So when you go to the cloud, there is storage facility, right? So in this, when you store, this is like your box, okay? The beauty is you can store anything. You can store locally. I mean, when I say locally, you can store across the, in a way such that it is accessible across the entire world, or you can define that it is at a specific region, and there are costs associated with that, or you can actually say, I want to store it at a specific node. Okay, all of that is possible. All kinds of information can be stored, whether it is flat files, anything, JSON, pretty much, right? So why is this important? Is capturing data. The first thing you want to do is just capture data and place it somewhere that you can start using, right? So that's why, and it's fairly easy to use. It's, by the way, you can define, like I said, for this purpose, we have defined multi-regional, right? I would define multi-regional only if I need access everywhere on the world, and also in a production setting. In a training or a development setting, I would never define a multi-regional storage. I would have it as a regional storage. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume for now that you're able to log into your account, your Google Cloud account. How many of you are already logged in? Okay, a lot of you, so we'll proceed. So what I'm going to show you is the power of Bigquery, okay? Now, Bigquery is nothing but data warehouse on the cloud. I'm going to run a simple query, okay? And you can run, this is not in your material, but I can send it to you, don't worry about it. I just want to illustrate the power of Bigquery. Now, what this is going to do, this query is going to look at the entire catalog of Wikipedia data and search for where there is a reference to Google and return the results. It's 4 terabytes of data. Look at how fast it's going to come back, probably in about 42 seconds. And this is when it is not cached, right? So this is just to showcase to you the power of Bigquery, right?
Even
there
faster.
You go, 39 seconds, right? Yeah. And it came back and it said, out of the Wikipedia views, about 7 million are for English, some 900, about just slightly less than 1 million are Spanish, and so on, right? Now, I can run the same query again, and you'll see it came back in less than a second because, of course, it used the cache records. Cache results. This is just to illustrate the power of Bigquery, which is very important when you're manipulating large amount of data that you need to feed into machine learning, okay? And if you see, the syntax is nothing but NC 2001's SQL syntax. Anybody who knows SQL can work with this data. You don't need like a special programming or anything. You know SQL, you can use Bigquery, okay? Now,
so basically, Google charges you according to the amount of data that you have searched for. So when it comes to using the cache results, Google, charges you for the first time that you run a query. For the next time you run the same query, you won't get you won't get charged, since it's using the cache results.
So by the way, the number of rows that it retrieved was more than 100 billion rows. Okay, so that's just to illustrate. Now we'll go to the actual tutorial, and in your tutorial, by the way, I just thought, right, you heard enough about toys. I think some of this were cat, dogs, animals, right? Thought maybe we are in San Francisco Bay Area. How about we talk about baseball and giants, right? So I used a public data set, by the way. These are what is called as a public data set, which means this is data that is available publicly. There's an entire 2016 season. The entire season, including the lowest level of detail, is in this data set stored in Bigquery, right? So we're going to use that just to sort of use the theme of how you can manipulate data using some of these fundamental data management tools on Google Cloud Platform. And there are equivalent of these, like I said, on AWS, etc. So in your exercise, we are going to go and look for, in that public data set, you're going to find basically all the important information about what happened to giants in the 2016 session, right? Season, sorry. And so this query, right, which is essentially over here, you can just cut and paste this. And if you plug that into your Bigquery window, so I can just do a compose new query. Okay. And I think somewhere there is a, there's a, here we go. When it did a copy. By the way, this is, you see this? It is AI at work. It tells me that I have a problem, right? As soon as I correct the problem, it will turn okay. There's one more carriage return, I think, somewhere. Here we go. I deliberately copied it and pasted it so that I had some errors. But you see this check mark? Now it told me that my syntax is correct. So basically, this is like Bigquery guides you. If you run this query, what we are going to do is you're going to get all the Giants games, right, for the 2016 season. And it will, what we are doing here is we are finding out what were the Giants games based on who were at their home stadium, right? And based on who their opponents were. So you can see all the important things, right? What was the score? What was the actual attendance and so on. Now, I've just done this query, but what do you think could be a purpose of doing this? Anybody? You heard about AI and ML, right? You heard about making the machine learn. You heard about making it learn from the data. If I were to forecast attendance for giants, I can develop a model using this data. But what I'm doing is I'm preparing the data so that I can build that model. So I just want you to understand why we are doing this, right? How does this lead into the AI and ML model building? But at the same time, I want you guys to see, using something like a Bigquery, how simple it is. Like I said, you don't need to be a programmer. You understand SQL, you can use Bigquery. Okay? But it's powerful. It is extremely powerful. It can return. Somebody said, I don't want to contradict. Somebody said, it takes days and days to do model training. Let me tell you. Okay? We do model training in seconds on Google Cloud Platform. I'm not kidding. I mean, my team does it, right, every time. So I just want you guys to be aware. I'm not, like I said, I'm not selling anything, but why is the power of the platform also important? Okay? You don't need, when we do our model building, our training lasts not more than minutes. Okay? Our model evaluation does not last more than minutes. But the other part that you heard today in the morning are very true. 80% of the time my team spends in just data management, capturing the data, manipulating the data, verifying the data. All of that is where majority of the time goes. The actual model building is only 20%. Okay? So I hope you appreciate why we are going like this step by step. Like I told you guys before, for a very experienced data scientist, you might be going, oh, this is so basic. And that's why I said, it's okay if you want to leave now and go home. That's fine. I wanted the people who didn't have much understanding of AI and ML to get started, right? So this is really for you guys. So by now you should have seen the power of Bigquery. I'm not going to do this, but as you go through the steps, you'll see a lot of options here, right? You can download the results as a CSV file. This is powerful. You can save this as a table. And in your tutorial, you'll be saving the data as a table because we are going to use it in the next phase, right? I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to wait for you if you want to save it as a table, or I can just save it as another table for now. And so that you guys can do the same thing. I'm not going to use this name. I'm just going to call it essay test. You guys can name it anything you want, But if you want to follow the tutorial, you have to name it the same way, or remember to use this table name, right? I mean, whatever you create in the next step. Yeah, I didn't create this one step before this, which will say that you have to actually enter the schema. Yeah. Which in your tutorial, you will see that, right? So after this, what I'm referring to is right here. Create a data set. How many of you have created the table? Oh, some of you. Okay.
So should we create the data set before
Yeah. You have to follow step by step. You saw like it gave me an error. I did that deliberately. You need to go step by step. Don't miss any steps. In the interest of time, I'm sort of going at a pace where you're not bored, but I'm waiting for you also. That's why I'm skipping through some steps here. But if you guys can come to where you can save it for those of you who are accessing and pulling up queries, you can create the data set and then you can save your Bigquery results in this data set. And then if you do that, you'll end up with this one right here. You'll see it come up on your left-hand side. What it will do is it would have saved a copy, but only of this information in this data set in Bigquery. Now, couple of things. I'm surprised none of you asked me why this, right? See this thing at the top, it says standard SQL. This is because in Bigquery, it supports both standard, there's NC 2011 SQL, which is standard SQL, that is supported by most platforms, as well as legacy SQL. And if I wanted to, see, the default option chosen is use legacy SQL. So if I want to override this, I can say hash standard SQL, or I can just uncheck this and then I don't have to give that, right? So just for those of you who are going to use Google Cloud Platform or we have used before, this is just something to note. Dhruva, you want to add anything, details from your perspective?
No, Salil, we are good. No,
Okay.
So far, so good.
All right. All right. How many of you are done with creating the table? So what we did is we took the whole data for the entire 2016 season of baseball, Major League Baseball, which has every team's performance in it, down to the lowest level. We selected all the games which had Giants in that and where they were played at Giants' home stadium, right? If you see, we played wherever basically we selected all the games where the home team was Giants. Meaning you'll see that, and actually if I remove, right, not every game, we didn't select all the games that had Giants in them. For that, we'll have to say whether it was home Giants or away Giants. Then we would get both, right? So we selected only where the home team, meaning all games played in San Francisco, right? And then we said, give us some of the attributes. And I mean, you can choose any, right? For now, I just kept it simple to say, what was the attendance? What was the run scored by the home team? What was the run scored by the away team, right? What were the errors, right? What were the errors by the home team? What were the errors by the away team? The reason, like I said, why I'm selecting these is if I want to, for example, make a prediction of attendance. Now, having known what the attendance in the past is, and some of the characteristics of attendance are what? Who is the home team? Who is the away team? Right? And by the way, if you want to say not only attendance, but you want to tie that attendance to the result, so knowing the difference between the scores is also important, right? So what I'm doing is I'm showing you how you prepare the data potentially to feed it into a model, right? We talked all about the fact that AI and machine learning is all about data. We can, like I said, if I have to continue this through the entire journey of actually showing you how to develop a model, we need 4 days, literally. I mean, this is done in a class of 4 days, actually, right? The entire thing that I talked about. Now, normally, if I don't want to be biased, because I sort of know a lot, I mean, a little of some of these, what we would do really is, in data science, we would put what we call as, just put all of this data and then just analyze it and see what the correlation of each feature is with what you want as a result, right? So in this case, what is the result is the difference of away versus home versus away runs. You could look at that as an outcome. You can look, say, how is that correlated with all of this and what comes up and what doesn't come out, right? And you could do that and then select the features. That's what a true data scientist would do, because you don't want to be biased. And I've got an example here. I'm not going to go through the actual code on how to get there, but here is an example of how you can do that, right? And you will hear these terms, a lot of the experienced data scientists would immediately know what is Pearson analysis and all that. But here is an example. I did this for a transactional system. If I don't want to be biased, I loaded all the 12 months of e-commerce history here, right? And this is a real data set. I'll not tell you which company it is. This was just done this morning. What I'm looking for is, what can I see from this e-commerce data, right? As you can see, if it is positive, it's red. If it's negative correlation, it's blue. What jumps up for me is the fact that if you see here, with orders being booked, and I looked at the line more than the number is the header, the lines matter. You can see right here that I have a correlation somewhere over here, and this one, if you see, it's a negative correlation, right? If you go down, it has to do with the orders coming from a certain source. That's a very interesting thing, which tells me right there and there that, hey, look into this in more detail. Certain orders coming from this source actually may have a lower, have inverse relationship to that source. Meaning, if the customer is coming from that source, they have less orders compared to other sources. So, as a true data scientist, what I would do is do something like this. And I think earlier my colleague talked about that, how in that beer use case, right? People used to look at only 3 data points. There were actually 200 data points, right? And how we analyzed those 200 and determine what was really relevant was through this kind of analysis, right? Like I said, this course, it's too detailed and heavyweight to do it here. That's why I'm not doing it. You'll hear this word, and I can actually somebody gave good websites, which I'm going to reproduce. They are the right ones. One is, people talk about NG's course. You can even go to this open website, and this is all about how you would use pandas to do data analysis. You can get started. I will send this out through Lalit to everybody, okay? There are nice websites you can go where you can get started with basic data sciences. And like I said, you need some sort of basic Python knowledge, and you are using libraries, pandas, like I said, right? These are most common. The other ones you will hear is scikit, most of the data science. Now I'm getting a little bit deep, which this is more for answering some of the questions I heard. We are not going to go into the details of this, right? But this is how you would do feature engineering, right? You would use this, then the results would be like this. You would literally say what features are important for the outcome, right? And based on that, you would select those features. Just a side note, like I said, full disclosure, I'm not going to go and walk through the code on how we arrived here, yeah? So continuing with this exercise.
If I didn't see baseball on the list, public data set, is that a problem?
You will see it. It's public. If you go to the query, I'll show you how to find it, right? If you look at the query, it says Bigquery public data dot baseball, right? And there's a baseball, and underneath that there is a table. So here, you see this? This is the highest level, right? Underneath there's baseball, and then underneath there is the games wide, which has all the data in it. Okay, I'll have Dhruva come to you guys, okay? All right, let's go to the next exercise. So thank you. You asked the right question. Why are we doing this? Essentially is the question. And I hope I gave the answer, right? And as you can see, you don't need to know technology to do this. You just need to know SQL. You can put data. By the way, what I didn't show you, to put data in Bigquery is very simple. You can, if you look at the Bigquery, the cloud storage I shared earlier, you can load a CSV file, which is a text file, and you can use an easy interface to say pull data from there into Bigquery. Bigquery has these features where it can detect the schema. As long
When you upload the data, do you always need a bucket or you don't?
it depends. You don't necessarily. I mean, I'm becoming complex now, but I can have a data flow job that would run and pull in. There's a cloud function. You can pull information from your source and plunk it directly in Bigquery. Okay, let's move to the next. So we see the power of Bigquery. Now I'm going to show you another tool, which is again very easy to use, where you can now use this to blend data, morph data, right? So it's called data prep. And again, if you go to this menu here on the console, you go down, right at the bottom, there will be something called as data prep. If I pull it up, there you go. You click that, and if you follow the instructions, you'll eventually come, and you'll have to accept a few things. So you'll eventually come to something which will show you like a blank, right? And I think you'll have to import the data set that you just created. That is also in the instructions. So you go through those instructions. I will wait till you guys come to where you have your data set imported into data prep. And that's also in the instruction list right here. So just go through this. You'll have to accept. By the way, make sure you answer yes and the accept buttons, because you'll have to give permissions to data prep to the internal functions. Make sure you answer yes to all of these and accept. Answer allow here for the trifecta. And then just follow these instructions. Again, allow. So I'll wait, because this will be a series of steps you have to do. And then once you're done, we'll together create a flow. How many of you have reached to a point where you've got to the point all the way?
Quite a few.
Quite a few. Okay. See, there are a series of steps here. Try to follow. I think we have to wrap up by 5, so I want to make sure I give my colleagues some chance to show you some really cool things. So I'm going, on this one, you guys can do this as a homework, but I'm just going to quickly create, show you the power, okay? And I may not stick to the script, but you guys stick to the script, meaning I might do something just different. So here, when you come here, you create a flow, and you can give it any name. And now you will add a data set, and what we will do is we'll add that same data set that we created, which will be from Bigquery. And so we'll select that data set. In your case, just make sure that you use the same data set that you named. And now we are going to add a new recipe. And Then I'm going to edit the recipe. So if you remember, one of the things that I was doing was calculating what is the difference between home runs and away final runs to determine the results, right? I want to create a win or a loss column, let's say, because I don't want to keep figuring that out, right? It's like in Excel, you would just want to say, hey, if this is greater than this is the result. So that's what I'm going to do, right? So first of all, before I do that, I'm just going to say I'm interested only in those games where the attendance was greater than 15,000, let's say. So I can do that as well.
Before that, Salil, so a quick introduction about this data prep. So data analysts and data engineers like me, spend most of the time, cleaning the data, since they are dealing with more very complex data. So data prep helps you to visually cleanse and prepare the data. So you see there, right? So in the green bars, so if there are any mismatched values in the columns, it will show you in red. If there are any missing values, it will show you in black. So it also even suggests, what do you want to do with those missing rows or data. So do you really want to keep them, or do you want to add aggregate values in that missing value columns? So basically, visually, you can prepare the data for your ML rocket.
Thank you, Dhruva. He works on this a lot, along data flow. And by the way, I like this tool so much that sometimes when I have my team members super busy, I just do this myself as well. So I leave them alone, right? Yeah. And I think that has happened recently, Dhruva.
Yeah, so as far as possible, I won't let Salil do it because I might get fired.
Manually, I'm going to change every piece of the data to be millions of rows. We need to figure out manually. We need tools for that also.
Yeah, then you are now going into advanced things, and which can be done using data prep. You can do sampling, right? Now you're getting into, I want to reduce my size of data because I have millions of rows. I want to clean, also I can clean millions of rows, right, using data prep or data flow, okay? But sometimes, and I think somebody made the comment today was very good, that I think it was the IBM guy, Sumit. He's absolutely right. It's not about having millions of rows of data always that matters. It's what is the variation, right? Even if I have 100,000, but the variation is good enough for my model to learn, that is good enough. So a lot of time, that's a great question. Do you really need to clean up every data? No, you can actually sample, then clean that sample, feed it to the data model. Great question. Yeah, later on, but the beauty is you will only need to use everything else if it needs to be used by the model. To train the model, you may not need to use the entire data set, right? That's the point, but great question, yeah. So I'm just going to show you, right, how to quickly create a new column, right? So it's a new formula, and I'm going to put the name as win-lose. Right, and the column I'm going to say if
It should be under bracket.
What is that? If that's it, right? What I did is I just derived a result and it stored it as an additional column, right? I mean, my point is this is a powerful tool. I think Dhruva, there's a lot of stuff we can do. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through the set. The reason of showing you this demo is to show you that just to get into machine learning, and especially that's one reason why I like, again, I said nothing against anybody, but personally, I like things that are simple, right? One of the features of Google Cloud Platform and the tools it provides, you don't necessarily have to be a super technology guy or a super mathematician, right? You can at least get started with AI and ML, right? And so for all of you, I wanted you to see this, right? Because people keep talking about data, how important it is for AI and ML, and I think people are wondering, well, what exactly does that mean to me? How do I get started? Hopefully this gives you a flavor, okay? In interest of time, I'm going to fast forward now. Now, you can see the power of data prep. Again, like I said, to really do justice, we need a lot more time. I'm going to show you now, finally, after managing data a lot of time, feature engineering, sometimes you have to present this to the business people. Even as a data scientist, you can't present to them in these cryptic terms, right? Like numbers. So visualization of the features of what it means becomes important, as an example, right? So for that, there is a tool that comes free with Google Cloud Platform. Personally, I like Tableau. That's a paid. I love Tableau, guys. I mean, I'm telling you, I do all my visualizations in Tableau, and then since this is more the Data Studio is free, but it's more cryptic, I let Dhruva do that for me if I have to do some advanced visualizations. So without further ado, in your tutorial, you will be now taking the same data, and we'll be coming to showing a visualization, right? I've already done this. You guys go through the steps, but I'll just do. Even within, although I like Tableau, even Data Studio is fairly easy to use. Now, what we are just showing is what's the attendance and duration, right, for all the home games by the opposing team. Visually, you can see where the big things are, right? And why that is important. Some of the things, like if you're a baseball fan, will be intuitive. Hey, if there's a rivalry, like I would look for what is the attendance for Rockies games, right? Or what is the attendance for Los Angeles Dodgers games, right? You can see that right there. Dodgers, very high, right? Padres, higher. So basically the traditional...
What's the definition of duration? How long the game lasts?
Yeah, duration is how long the game lasted. So now, but this is just showing me now, let's say if I want to put a selection, right? This is what in every visualization analysis, you want to filter data. So you can easily do this by going to the edit view, and then I can just add.
You're in view mode.
Insert. You can put a filter control. And where is my theme for filter control?
Right.
Yeah, just there. And then I can say what I want is the venue name, or in this case, I want the away team name. I don't want the venue name. And then I want the metric to be the attendance, because that's what I'm presenting. And that's it. We're done. And then I go back to view, and you can see now I can do filter. If I want to see only Rockies, only the Western teams.
Click on the, if you want.
Yeah. Padres, I don't care about these. And then I see only the ones that I want, right? So, I mean, these are standard things. So you guys, this everybody does, right? But I just wanted to show that from data capture, data manipulation, visualization, analysis, everything is available, right? And in this case, on Google Cloud, there are similar. If you don't have it all on the other clouds, you can use a combination of open source and the cloud, like AWS, to achieve the same thing. The key is, the message here is data is important, data manipulation is important, feature engineering is important. There was yes, with DNN, deep neural networks, you don't have to do feature engineering. Yes, it does. But guess what? If you don't do feature engineering, it takes a long more time and to get the model accurate. So based on experience, what we end up in doing a lot is we do feature engineering first, and then we feed the data, which also makes the model more accurate. And then there are more complex topics. None of them were touched on today. And by the way, another input for you guys, that's where I'm going to have Dhruva come and show you. 80 to 90% of the time, the models are simple. Okay, if you think that you need complex models to solve most of the business use cases, you're wrong. It's really the other way around. They have to be simple, start with something simple. It's only the most of the difficult use cases, like for example, the car driving, driverless cars. Those are some of the complex, where you really need complex modeling there, right? But classification, like for example, determining whether a credit card customer is risky or not, that is a classification model. You don't need to make that complex. Determining whether a service contract will be renewed or not is a classification problem again. That should be a simple model. Don't try to complicate that, right? So these are the things that we have seen, or I'm still seeing, that I want to pass on to you guys. But great question.
Is there an online course you can recommend for feature engineering?
The online course as such, right? Everybody talks about end-to-end. Some of the feature engineering comes from experience, and it's hard to teach experience, right? That is the answer, really. The basics of figuring out, I think, are taught in end use. I mean, there's a course, like I think one of the speakers already gave, which I agree is a very good course to start with, right? I'm not talking about end-to-end, just for feature engineering. I think he mentioned one course, and that itself is a. So, but these are just tools that you should use. You really have to build your experience doing model development yourself, right? Finally, nobody can teach you the art. This is part of feature engineering, is also the art of making sure that you understand the science and the use case and figuring out what's the right feature. Okay, I think I need to stop here because I would like to have Dhruva. Dhruva, can you come back? He has got a great, using these pre-built APIs, by the way. He's got an excellent story where he will demonstrate to you how to use pre-built machine learning model in a way that they solve a tangible problem.
Today I'm going to talk about the Google's pre-built machine learning APIs. They are friendly machine learning APIs. You don't have to write any code, or you don't have to prepare any data. All you have to do is that leverage the pre-built machine learning APIs that Google built, and then solve your problems. I'll show you a picture of a monument. I want you guys to shout out the name of that monument as soon as you see that. I'll show you again.
The WebEx is active now.
Someone said Eiffel Tower. Vegas. All right. So I'll just upload that picture. Let's see how Google pre-built Vision API recognizes that one. See? So this Vision API, it has very interesting features of detecting logos, labels, face recognition, and optical character recognitions, and there's landmark detections and celebrity face detections and stuff. So when I uploaded this picture, it recognized as Bellagio Hotel and Casino, and it even gave its coordinates, and so.
So wait, it looked at the picture and then gave you, is that what it did?
That's right. It recognized as Paris Hotel, Las Vegas, but not Eiffel Tower. It basically recognized that Bellagio as well as this tower, Paris, Las Vegas. It did not recognize it as Eiffel Tower, but as a whole, it's called Bellagio Paris Hotel, right?
It's called Paris.
Right, Salil? I haven't been to Las Vegas. Sorry. Okay, so it's not part of?
This dance is number 2.
Number 2 is
Okay, that's right.
they're next door to each other.
Okay. So these are all the pages that matched this image. You can find this image in this following websites, and it gives web entities, and it gives the dominant colors in it. It gives recommendation how do you want to crop it and stuff. So, and coming to cloud natural language processing, Vinayak and Sumit spoke a lot about this cloud natural language, and I'm not gonna talk about it. And then coming back to the lab that I have built today, what we are going to do is basically stitch these 3 pre-built cloud machine learning APIs to find out what this is. How many of you knows Mandarin here? Great. So what does it say? I don't know Mandarin. Mandarin. I guess it's Mandarin. Is it? Are you sure? Let's find out if you're correct. So basically uploaded this image into Google Cloud Storage, and I gave the location into the API that I have built here. So we are leveraging the Vision API to scan through the image and extract the optical character recognition feature of Google pre-built ML to detect what's the text in it. So after a series of curl commands, so the response is this one. So what it does is it basically extracted the data from the signboard. So this is the this is the text in the signboard, and ZH basically means it's code for Mandarin. So it recognized it as Mandarin and it extracted the text as well. So after that, I'm requesting translation API and leveraging it. I'm requesting it to translate the text that we have extracted using Vision API into English. So the response was like, please love and protect hygiene to create a beautiful and water environment.
There we go.
That's right. So after this, I leverage the cloud NLP, which is natural language processing, to determine the sentiment about what the content of the signboard. So NLP, Google NLP has, basically 700 predefined labels in it. So when it comes to this signboard, it is about hygiene and it is about water environment. So that is it. So what if you have, millions of images? Basically, you can drop it in the cloud storage and leverage this API to find out the sentiments and extract the text, translate it, and have it analyzed. So that is it. You have the instructions. You can always go home and try it out at your home. So thank you. That is it. Yeah.